Good evening and greetings of peace. My name is Yusuf Ismail and the program you're watching is I Beg to Differ. Today we look at the ongoing shenanigans on Eskom, which has been affecting South Africans for the past decade. South Africans are sick and tired. South Africans are fed up. In a report by the Eskom spokesperson, Khulu Phasiwe, he stated that management has apparently put aside 11.5 million rands, once again people's money, to address this problem. The whole process is going to take time. The projection from management is that maintenance and load shedding may take at least 12 months. Well, joining me in the studios to discuss this contentious issue, I'm joined by Rasool Snyman, who is the spokesperson for People Against Eskom Price Hikes and Corruption. Welcome, Rasool. It's good to have you again on our program.
Thank you, Yusuf, and to the viewers, greetings.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you. And joining us via Skype, we are joined by the national spokesperson for Eskom, Khulu Phasiwe. Welcome, Khulu. It's good to have you again on our program.
Thank you so much, and greeting to our viewers as well.
Thank you. Khulu, I just want to start off with this. You seem to be a man, when we talk about many of these state-owned enterprises, and, speaking to you and having just a few minutes interaction with you, you seem to be a man of credibility. You seem to be, I've seen some of your statements in the paper and some of the reports around you, but having been with this entity, Eskom, for a period of a decade of a year, of at least for a period of a decade, do you see yourself in many instances as having been a spokesperson for an organization that by and large has been infested by liars, criminals, and individuals of the worst moral caliber?
Well, the issue around the criminals and things like that, I will be in a position to answer on it because none of them have been found to have been criminals. But yes, there are investigations going on in relation to some of the wrongdoing that happened within Eskom. And if indeed it has been found and established that some of them have done criminal things within Eskom, then absolutely the law has had to take its course there so that these people should be arrested. But as you know, there's a commission of inquiry which is dealing with the state capture issues. Just recently, Parliament has also completed its investigations. So all of these things, including, by the way, currently we have, I think, 9 bodies within Eskom that are investigating all sorts of things that are happening there. So you have the Hawks, the SIU, the police, and other law enforcement agencies, including this commission of inquiry, which is currently underway. So clearly, somewhere along the line, if someone has been found with their hands in the cookie jar, clearly the law has had to take its course there. But yes, you're correct. Eskom has been facing a lot of problems. I'm sure it will continue to face a lot of problems because some of the problems that we are seeing now did not happen overnight, and therefore the solutions will not come overnight. Right now, as I speak to you, we have implemented stage 1 of load shedding. We have been having stage 2 of load shedding since the beginning of this week, since Monday. Clearly, things are not normal. This company, in its own wisdom, has decided several months ago to defer maintenance on its power stations, and some of these power stations are now breaking down. We now don't have enough diesel, we don't have enough water for the pump scheme storage. All of these things should have been avoided and we are sitting in a situation now where we have load shedding. So the frustration that people are facing and are feeling, I do understand it because we shouldn't be here. And load shedding is not only causing problems for the living, believe it or not, it's also causing problems for the dead. This morning I got a call from one person who runs a funeral parlor, and he was telling me about the difficulties that he has had to face in terms of preparing the bodies for burial. They need to be kept at a particular temperature. And now with load shedding, clearly becomes a challenge for him. So we're sitting with a big problem as South Africans, and as Eskom in particular.
Sure, and I want to say I appreciate your honesty on that particular point, and certainly there's many commissions of inquiries and individuals that have basically, Anuj Singh as one particular character that we talk about. But I'm going to come back to this, but I just want to bring for your particular attention an analogy that has basically gone on social media. Which effectively points out that from 2003 to 2017, the electricity output generally has basically remained flat. Now, if you look at an ordinary company, if for a period of 12 months, 14 months, the output or the production output in fact remains flat, then generally speaking one would assume that there has to be some sort of a reduction in costs in order for the company to become more efficient. But when you look at Eskom, in 2003 they had approximately 32,000 employees. In 2017 they've got 47,000 employees, which is a 50% increase in employment with zero increases in productivity. If you look at 2003, 32,000 employees were paid something like 300,000 rands, an average annual salary. In 2018, average of 47,000 employees are paid an average annual salary of 825,000 rands. I mean, if they had inflationary increases. Now, this particular paints a bleak picture because, generally speaking, in summary, over a 14-year period, if the production remains flat, but the employment increases by 50%, there's been salary hikes, a company will generally not survive. And yet it seems that, we know the saga with Brian Molefe and Anoj Singh. I just saw something on social media, and MoneyWeb has basically queried that your CEO, Phakamani Hadebe, has an annual remuneration of 8.5 million rands. Now, is it sustainable to have so many employees in an institution where production is totally flat, such high salary hikes, and CEOs and individuals paid an exorbitant amount of money?
Well, the costs that Eskom have currently are unsustainable. We have a very weird situation where the costs are very high, the revenue is stagnant or sometimes even going down. Clearly, if you have more cost than revenue, you are heading for trouble. But the issue around Mr. Phakamani Hadebe's salary and those kind of things, quite frankly, that is a matter which is above my pay grade excuse my pun, the pun there. But quite frankly...
Does he earn? I mean, this is... MoneyWeb, in fact, asked, and I believe the Citizen asked a comment from Eskom, because they said, how do you justify these costs? Does Phakamani Hadebe earn 8.5 million? I mean, Brian Molefe was said to have earned in that particular range. And I mean, if Phakamani Hadebe's salary is in that range, then it just simply continues the trajectory of Brian Molefe, Anoj Singh, and most of these other characters that basically ran Eskom to the ground.
Yes, so as I said, people like Brian Molefe, Machela Koko, Anoj Singh, and anyone in between, if there's anything found against them, there's absolutely nothing prohibiting the law of this nation to take its course and have these people arrested. So no one is against this. They must be arrested if there's something wrong that they have done or colluded with external parties to rob up this company. This company, for example, Mr. Singh himself has said in Parliament that he had given this Tegeta, one of our suppliers, a guarantee of something like 1.6 billion rand without the approval and the knowledge of the board and the National Treasury. So clearly that is a violation, and if this warrant seems to be arrested, let the law take its course. No one is going to argue with that one. But the thing about the salaries quite frankly are a discussion or a function at least between the agreement between the employer, which is the Eskom in this regard, and the person who they want to hire. And above all, because we are a state-owned company, the Minister of Parliament of Public Enterprises, together with Cabinet, they get involved in all of these things. So in other words, it's not a secret meeting between some person from HR and the person they are hiring. It has to be an open process which includes Parliament. So which is why I'm saying this matter about their salaries, it's something which is beyond my pay grade. I cannot answer adequately of this. It has to be something that can be answered by the board.
I'm going to move on.
I have to finish this point because you asked the question. I agree with you that the costs within Eskom are too high and therefore they need to be kept. You're correct. About 10 years ago or so, this company was having about 32,000 or 33,000 employees. Currently, we're sitting with over 48,000 employees. And you're correct, the productivity levels have not improved. So clearly there's a mismatch there, and this thing has to be corrected. Importantly, if Eskom has any ambitions of extricating itself from these difficulties, the basic thing that you have to do, among others, is to reduce your costs, and importantly, you need to increase your sales. Eskom's revenue sales have been stagnant for the last 10 years, and clearly this is not sustainable. So the sustainability of Eskom, in other words, depends on two things. The first one is to contain costs. Either you reduce them or you keep them stagnant, and then you improve your revenue. Those are the key things that Eskom has to do, and management and the new board of Eskom have decided that these are the focal points going forward.
Okay, just one point before I get to Rasul. I accept the premise about criminalizing the process and all these individuals with bad reputations and the criminal outputs. The problem is, and this is the difficulty, is that billions have been lost. Billions. Now basically, you know, I've just seen a report recently where just about 2 days ago, Eskom is keeping mum on details about a reported request to government to take approximately 100 billion rands of its debt. Now, if that in fact happens, a struggling power utility wants that amount to go on government's balance sheet. What's basically going to happen, it's going to reduce our country's GDP beyond junk status. I mean, I understand the point. We criminalize individuals. They've committed crimes. They're going to end up in jail. The reality is that billions have been lost. Now, how are we going to recover that? Can you see the difficulty we've got?
Well, the Minister of Public Enterprises, Mr. Pravin Gordhan, said, I think it was on Thursday.
It was Tuesday, I think Thursday, yeah.
Yes, he said from their side as government and the shareholder, they're not going to make any pronouncements on this allegation or report that we are seeing about this 100 billion rand debt relief. They are going to establish some kind of a committee which is going to assist Eskom to get itself out of this quagmire, and then they will make a pronouncement sometime in the new year. So quite frankly, this matter is one of those which I will not be in a position to answer because government, as the shareholder says, it is not ready to make any pronouncements on it.
Okay, but in a report to Citizen, you did state that the utility, Eskom, is discussing a strategic review with the government in respect of the 100 billion rands. Now, when you speak about a strategic review to amass or get 100 billion rands or to take over that particular indebtedness, what do you mean by that? I mean, the people have to know. At the end of the day, this is taxpayers' money. We need to know.
Yes, people have the right to know, and those who are chosen by the same people to be in parliament are saying they are not ready to make any pronouncements. And those representatives of the public, once they are ready, they will make a decision about this thing. Let's make this thing very clear. The thing about this 100 billion rand thing, if it's going to happen, clearly it's going to be money coming from the fiscus, and the fiscus, as you and I know, is coming from the people of this nation. So government, through the National Treasury, they are saying they are not ready yet to make any pronouncements because they have not discussed this matter with Eskom. So in due course, in January or February in particular, because that's when government makes budget votes and things like that, I'm sure we will get details as to what is it that government wants to do as a shareholder.
Sure.
One of the things we've heard from people who are called economists and political analysts, they are saying maybe one of the things you need to do is not even to bail out Eskom. All you need to do is maybe to privatize it. Some of them are saying maybe you need to sell off some assets. I don't know what's going to happen ultimately. But,
okay, Kulu, I just want to stop you. Kulu, I just want to stop you. We just have to go for a quick ad break. Just out of time. We have to go for a quick ad break, and we'll be back shortly. Welcome back to I Beg to Differ. I'm your host, Yusuf Ismail. With me in the studios is Rasul Snyman, who is a representative of People Against Eskom Price Hikes. And we're also joined by the national spokesperson for Eskom, Kulu Pasiwe. We're glad to have both of you here. Rasul, just before we went for the break, you've heard the position of Kulu, and he seems to come out as someone purportedly a man of credibility, but he claims that the situation has been beyond him. Yes, certainly there's been this debacle that has been enveloping Eskom over the past decade, but he suggests, and certainly the situation is extremely dire, but the reality is with the new pronouncements made by the minister, they are apparently trying to get a trajectory, a way out of this mess. What do you say about that?
I like Kulu.
Okay, that's
Let
good.
me start there. He comes across as a genuine person. He comes across as a sincere person. But the fact of the matter is, he's representing an insincere entity.
Sure.
An entity that has not started yesterday or is selling a pair of shoes. But if you take, let's say, for example, the Mandupi project, it started in 2007 and we're here in 2018. So if one talks about remedial action now, one has to also weigh up what has been the damage in between 2007 and 2018. How many people were impoverished, for example? How has the economy been stifled? Where has the money gone to? What are the social and political implications of that? I also disagree with how we're locating the discussion. We're locating the discussion as though this is just a company that operates in isolation that's making peanut butter. This is not a company that is making peanut butter. It's a company that's ripping off the nation. It's a company that's involved in criminal activities. It's a company that works within the political paradigm. And within that paradigm, the very same people that Kulu has mentioned are framed within the law are the people who are ripping off the country.
Co-opted by government in many respects, by the Zuma government.
Government is the problem.
Government's the problem.
It's not merely the Zuma government. It goes back to 1994. 2007, for example,
was the Mbeki government.
Is a
long time
all
ago.
the administrations are the same. 1994, for example, gave us huge questions about what do we do with our parastatals. Where does the country get its money? Where does it put its money? Who owns us? And now when I hear someone say, for example, we think of selling off Eskom as an asset. To whom?
Highest bidder.
Neoliberalism, for example, is when you gut a company, when you gut a country, and you gut it by making something go bad and then sell it at bargain basement prices. And that's what's happening to Eskom.
Well, is that the point? I mean, because you did suggest, Kulu, just before we went for the break, the idea of privatizing Eskom. Well, what happens then? I mean, the price hikes, it's going to be astronomical when a corporate takes over.
Well, I would like to clarify that I did not say that we as a company want to privatize Eskom, because remember, Eskom does not own itself. It's owned by government, and therefore, if there are any moves to privatize Eskom, those moves will be done by government itself. What I was saying is that some people, like economists and those who call themselves political analysts, they are saying Eskom has to be privatized, but the shareholder or the owner of the company has not said anything about privatization.
Kulu, with due respect, when we said, that's why I'm coming back to the law, you mentioned the law will take its course. But the lawmakers are the people who are the problem. So who's policing the police, so to speak? In the Zuma instance, we've had instances where a person calls his own commission to investigate himself.
Can you hear us, Kulu? Well, we seem to have had a problem with Kulu, but I think we seem to have got him back now online. Kulu, are you there? Can you hear me? Yeah, sure. Sure, Russell, just to interject, what was the point you were making, Russell? Because I don't think Kulu had heard it.
I think what I had said was, we cannot see Eskom divorced from the political paradigm, because everything about Eskom is politics. From who owns Eskom right down to who formulates the commissions to investigate Eskom, and who's going to decide on what the outcomes of Eskom's commissions will be. State capture means we have to look at government itself, and then look at Eskom, and then look at who was in Eskom to bring this about, because we're not talking about an event. It wasn't one guy that, for example, sold coal and stole money from Eskom. This is a trajectory that started from 1994 to now.
Yes.
And it just deepened the crisis. For example, if you look at who was placed in Eskom, it was a case of cronyism. For example, if government was a stakeholder, I'm not too sure to what percentage, if government was a stakeholder, then surely it should have been monitoring and not 10 years later come and say, let's have a commission. Someone should have been in jail already. Remedial actions should have been taken already, and the buck should not have been passed on to the consumer. As we stand now, we are not sure where we stand as consumers. The poorest of the poor are sitting burdened with a debt that the political leaders had not addressed, that Eskom itself had not addressed, but at the same time, it was giving itself golden handshakes. Now, this is not an event, it's a process that's flawed. For example, Mandupi alone, I mean, you talk 60...
I just want to bring, but I want him to address so we can interact with each other. You've heard what Rasool stated, Kulu, that this is not just during the Zuma presidency, but before this, the cronyism, the corruption, the crime that has been basically committed. And I mean, just also at the same point, addressing the issue of Madupi and Kusile. I think you've mentioned that in some of your press reports recently. Eskom, by and large, has been responsible for the execution delays. I mean, the energy analyst, I think Brian Yellen, said that the five-year delay was caused by policy indecisions, and the second 5 years by execution delays within Eskom itself.
Well, the problems that are now besetting this company did not start yesterday, did not start last year, did not start over the last 10 years. Some of them actually were done in the early 70s. And in fact, some people already now are saying, if you really want to get to the bottom of the state capture, you probably need to go back to the early 60s and 70s. Because as you may know, we currently have companies have evergreen contracts with Eskom. They supply with Eskom with coal, and they have 40, 50-year contracts. Clearly, if you have a 40-year or 50-year contract, it means that the other guys are not going to get a slice of the cake. If you really want to get to the bottom of this issue, some people are saying, let's go back there. But I suppose you can't dig everything up and go as far back as 1960. You need to start somewhere, which is why there's a commission of inquiry, which is looking into things that happened over the last 10 years. And that's where the government is at the moment. If people are going to call for the commission or any other thing to go back to other years beyond the last 10 years, then clearly it's a story for another day. But right now, I do agree. If any of the executives over the last 10 years have any wrongdoing on their part and there's evidence to prove it, I have absolutely no qualms. If I'm asked to bring them to the nearest police station, I certainly will do so, because I'm the one, by the way, who has to answer for some of these wrong things that have happened in this company, and therefore I would be willing to have the police to get these people arrested.
Okay, but you speak from the position of possible speculation of criminal activities. I mean, I could say the same for the organization that I'm based with. If there's crime that has been committed, I'd basically go and report it. But I'm asking you, I mean, with what you now know, for example, I'm not talking about potentialities, but do you believe as a statement of fact that Eskom has been corrupt, that it was indeed infestated with criminals, that you had this kind of criminal network operating Eskom at its fundamental core? Do you believe that was indeed the case? Not about what you may do. Do you believe that was indeed the case? I understand that as a spokesman, there's a kind of a thin line that you are standing on. And nobody wants to compromise your job as a spokesperson. But do you believe, I mean, a lot of the shenanigans that we have seen, a lot of these criminal individuals are now presently out, but do you believe that it had been wrought with elements of criminality?
Well, if I heard your question correctly, yes. If there's anyone, myself included, by the way, if there's anyone in this company who has done criminal acts, there's no reason why they should be working for Eskom still, or even those who have left Eskom. You have mentioned before Brian Damas, Brian Ralefe, and I'm seeing Machala Koko, and everyone else in between. If any one of them, including people who are still working for Eskom, are found to have done anything wrong, these people must be jailed. No one is disputing that fact. And quite frankly, the reason why there's this commission of inquiry is basically to get to the bottom of this abroad that has happened in Eskom and to get the perpetrators.
Okay. In 2016, just speaking about Anuj Singh, and I don't want to, go back too much to the past, but I think it's important. The thing you were told, there was a discussion where you had basically made a report to the Sunday Times or Sunday Tribune, I think it was the Sunday Times, that at that point in time, November 2016 or December 2016, Eskom categorically had no contracts with Trillion, and consequently no payments were made. Now, in that context, Eskom was clearly lying because they had told you to basically give out the spin to the media, and you effectively gave out the spin, knowing full well that there was indeed a contractual relationship with Trillion, and payments had been made at that particular point of juncture. Do you regret the position that you were at that particular point of time? Is it kind of an embarrassment for you in your capacity as a spokesperson that you had to be a front man for, clearly liars and cheats and fraudsters?
Well, maybe let's start in my role in Eskom. I am a spokesperson of the company. I represent this company. Whenever there's a query either from the media or parliament or wherever it's coming from, if it's directed to me, I have to get the information from the managers or directors of this company who have been chosen by government to represent this company. So the information I get is coming from them, and therefore, if I get information, for example, from Mr. Anuj Singh, because I asked him, did we as Eskom make any payments to Trillion? Mr. Singh, who was the financial director of this company, and he was a board member of this company, said to me that we did not make any payments to that company. So clearly, if the information is coming from the source, which is the man who is running the finances every day, and he says to me that he did not make any payments, who am I to doubt him? Because at the time, by the way, I did not have the information that I now have, that he had lied to Parliament, and he also had provided the same information, by the way, to the Minister of Public Enterprises. And the Minister is not just some person who's just going to Parliament to speak because they can speak. He's the shareholder minister, meaning that she's representing the interests of all 50 million people of this nation through the government. So
did you confront him? Kulu, did you confront him? Did you? Okay, sure.
Minister had said in Parliament, Minister of Public Enterprises then, Lynn Brown, had said in Parliament that Eskom did not make any payments to Trillion. So both the minister and I got the same information from the directors of this company, and these directors have said they did not make any payments. So clearly, ultimately, what we now know is that they had lied. So they had lied not only to me and the minister, they have lied to Parliament, and they have lied to the nation of this country. So whether I regret or anything of that sort, you see, for me at least, if you were to regret for anything, it has to be something that you had deliberately done, and therefore you have to repent for it. So all I'm saying is, we had been lied to, and by default we lied to the people that we had to give information to, for example, the media. But I was not part of the scheme to sort of cover up this thing, Trillion, and therefore I was representing the position as I got.
Okay, and no one is making that suggestion in the very least, you, and I'm going to get to Rasul before we go for the ad break, but just one quick point then. Subsequently, you would have known that Anuj Singh lied, certainly to Parliament as well. Did you then subsequently confront him to say, look, why did you communicate something which was inherently false? Did you at any stage, because he had not been fired immediately. You see, he was fired subsequently in subsequent months. Did you then confront him to say, look, if my boss lies to me, I'd tell him, why do you tell me to go and tell lies to the public? Did you tell him that you're a liar, you lied publicly on these particular payments, you lied that there was no contractual relationship to Trillion, and you made me tell these lies to the public? Did you at any stage, or have you now ever confronted him? Did you get to see him again?
Well, I think it was on the 3rd of January this year. That's when Mr. Singh had appeared in Parliament, and then he started saying that he was not aware of some of the statements I had made, or media statements that we had issued on behalf of the company and things like that. So through that, then I was subsequently asked on some of the radio stations here in Johannesburg, for example, to explain our position, which is what I've just shared with you now. So in other words, I've already through Twitter and also via radio stations that were interested at the time to ask me what our position is. I've already made our place very clear. And I must say, News 24 and others have carried that position very scarcely to say that I have said that Mr. Singh had lied, not only to me,
Yes.
but to the minister
Okay.
and to South Africa.
Okay, again, we've just gone a bit over schedule. I have to go for a quick ad break. I know, Rasul, I'm going to get back to you, and I'm going to get back to Kulu, but we'll be back shortly in this ongoing debate with Eskom. Welcome back to I Beg to Differ, and I'm your host Yusuf Ismail, and with me in the studios on the ongoing debate on Eskom is Rasul Snyman and the national spokesperson for Eskom, Kulu Pasiwe. Rasul, you've heard what Kulu basically stated, that his position was very much of a recipient of information, and the fact that he had been surrounded by criminal elements within Eskom basically made him to make these particular pronouncements in the public sphere, and he's explained himself from that perspective. What's your take?
My position is that I empathize with him.
Sure.
He's an employee that is subject to all the dynamics of an employee. He has the framework within which he works as far as power is concerned, but one then has to look at the entire system in its totality. Because Kulu made a statement where he said the minister went and stands for and on behalf of the 50 odd million people. But the minister or the ministry or the government is itself the problem, because it has been deploying people to Eskom, for example. It was supposed to be holding them to account. It is now investigating itself.
So you're saying, Rasul, it's a little bit too late?
We now have to look at the entire system and say, where do we go to from here? Because Eskom is symptomatic of a deeper malaise, a deeper structural problem that we as society need to address. I can't speak as Eskom, even though as I sit here, am inadvertently a shareholder in Eskom.
Sure.
But as a shareholder, what are my rights within Eskom? How is it that I can't speak within Eskom and say, I want the CEO fired? I don't want the CEO to have a golden handshake. I want the CEO to be jailed, for example. This takes us to the entire political paradigm, the entire structure and nature of our politics. So for me, it's not good enough to say, we've gone back to the people who caused the problem to solve the problem.
I agree.
We now need, as civil society, to say 2018 is a time that we change. Just now we're going to have an election. Different players, same problem.
It's a continuation on the same trajectory.
We've got to go back, because for me, what remedial action will be taken? Are we going to see someone jailed? For example, if we talk about state capture is not a common crime by a common criminal. This is treason at the highest level. It's the highest form of treason. Will we see a minister go to jail for life? For example, if I betrayed the interests of my country, they'll jail me for life. Why not the Eskom guys?
That's true. I think, could you perhaps address those issues? And then we're going to focus on what's affecting South African public, the prevailing blackouts now. But could you address that particular issue based on what Rasul stated, Kulu?
Well, you know, there are a lot of problems within this organization, Eskom that is. Eskom, in its wisdom, had decided to not invest a lot on coal over the last few years. There's what we call the cost plus mines. It's an arrangement where a company X would establish a mine next to a power station, and Eskom, in terms of the agreement that they have, Eskom would capitalize the mine regularly so that the coal can come through. And it's almost like a captured market, and it's a bad word I know that I'm using, but it's a capture kind of thing because the coal, all of it, which is coming there, is going directly to the mine. And Eskom and Western have not been investing in these things, and these companies themselves were not investing in their own operations.
Can I interrupt? Can I interrupt just on that point, but to continue with you, so I don't want to kind of take you off your thought, but on that point itself, as I see the reports presently, Eskom has paid and is still paying a Gupta-owned mine approximately 1 billion rands this year for coal it has not received. Eskom has paid 705 million rands to Optimum since March because apparently there are contractual obligations that were largely engineered by the former Mineral Resources Minister and obviously, as the lady you mentioned, the ex-acting Group Chief Executive, Machele Koko. The payments are still being made. Can these payments not be stopped? I mean, what are the contractual obligations? 30 billion rands in derivative losses have emanated from the Gupta capture of Eskom Treasury. 50 billion rands in contractors' claims on capital build. 500 billion rands in asset overvaluation. 8 billion rands of overvalued coal stock. And the fact that Eskom is paying to a mine and has been paying in respect of certain contractual obligations and receiving no value for that. I mean, this is the height of insanity. And I mean, if this matter was taken into the courts, immediately a court would order that Eskom cease to pay. This is clearly a breach. Because you've mentioned before their contractual obligations. I'm just curious to note, why is Eskom paying Gupta-owned companies for something it does not receive?
Yusuf, if I may add to that.
If I can just get...
just like the previous statement that was made earlier on, I think by your guest in the studio, about the thing about Eskom people being paid something like 800,000 rand. Quite frankly, you don't have to believe everything that you read, or at least the list that people should do for themselves. It's actually to either ask or get the correct information. For example, the thing about 800,000 rand that people are earning within Eskom, it's very lazy economics or lazy accounting that people are doing. What they do is, they say Eskom has at the time at least 47,000 workers, and then they divide that thing by the total cost of employees. I think it was sitting at about 30,000 at the time, 13 billion. And then what you get is something like 700 or 800,000. And then they say people are earning that much. I can tell you right now that there are many people at Eskom who wish they could earn 800,000 rand a year or even a month or whatever it is. So some of these things are lazy accounting by people who just believe everything that they are
Okay, cool. I accept that, and you point on. Your point is correct. We shouldn't accept what people just say in the media. I accept that point. I accept that, and that's why we got you here, and that's why we got you to clarify. And I don't want to focus too much on the salaries. I brought that up earlier, but the disturbing thing, which is a fact, and you've obviously discussed it, is that at this point in time, Eskom this year has paid a Gupta-owned mine nearly 1 billion rands for coal it has not received. Is that true or not?
Exactly that I'm trying to asking questions, good thing, and when you ask questions, clearly you're expecting an answer. I'm coming there. I said I have 2 points that I need to clarify. The first one was about the 800,000 rand. Hopefully that one is clear as mud. And or at least hopefully some people don't want to believe it, which is good, I suppose, because that's why I'm saying it's clear as mud. But that's the position. So you cannot say 30 billion rand divided by 47, you get 8,000, and therefore 800,000, that's what people at Eskom are earning. That is not the case, and that's what I call lazy accounting. And then this thing about Eskom paying 1 billion rand to Tegeta. You know, anyone who has been following these things over the last, say, a year or two would know that Tegeta is now out of business. They have said in their own words that they cannot do business in South Africa because no one wants to have accounts with them. If you extrapolate that and ask yourself a question, if this story in the business report is saying Eskom has paid 1 billion rand to this company between March and now, where did they make these payments, in which account? Because if these guys are not doing business because no one wants to do business with them in terms of bank accounts, then how did Eskom pay them? That's the first question, and a very basic question that people should be asking themselves. But the problem in South Africa in these days, including some in the media, by the way, people are quick to believe things that they see and without even interrogating them. So the point I'm trying to make is, Eskom has not done business, currently at least, since the end of March this year. Tegeta had stopped supplying coal to Eskom power stations, and if you are not supplying coal or any service for that matter, no one in their right mind should be making any payments to you.
So are you saying that Eskom has not made payment of 1 billion rands? Is that what you're saying? They have not made payment.
That is the point that I'm making.
But why is it in the media? Why is it in the media you were quoted, Kulu, as saying that, well, besides Tegeta, there was a statement about the 705 million rands that was paid to Optimum since March, and you mentioned something about the existence of contractual obligations that were engineered by the former Mineral Resources Minister that compelled Eskom to make these payments, even though they got no value for the 705 million rands that was made. I mean, you did mention that there are contractual obligations in place, therefore we have to pay them. But I mean, even in terms of the law of contract, you cannot pay for something you do not receive. Now the point I want to know is what are the contractual obligations?
Yes. So the point that I'm trying to make, among other things, is that not everything that you read is the truth. On the same day that the Business Report published their story, I wrote a letter to the editor of the Business Report and the guy who wrote the story. And by the way, you can also do your own quick search on Twitter. I wrote the letter to these people, and I also sort of rebutted them on Twitter, which is a public forum, or public space at least. That's what I did. So all I'm saying is, this thing about 1 billion rand is not true, because the guy made some calculation. The question that they asked me was, how much was Eskom paying to these people at the time when they were having contracts with you? And then I said, we were buying coal from Tegeta at 150 rand per ton, and they were contracted to supply us with over 400,000 tons of coal per month. And then they made their own calculations, and then they came to 1 billion rand. So we have not made a payment of 1 billion rand. We don't have a business them because they're under business rescue. We cannot make any payments, even if we wanted to them, because they don't have a bank account.
So here's the thing, Rasul, you wanted to comment on that point just before I interjected you.
No, I think continue. I'll pick up later.
Okay, just one point. So basically, you know, I want to kind of move on. I want to get back to that, but I want to move on to the critical issue affecting South Africans. South Africans have no lights. I mean, basically, we are in a frustrated position. Now, here's the situation. I want to just bring out this report that has basically arisen as a result of the rationale given as to why the prevailing blackouts are basically existing. And the reason that has been come out in the press, that obviously you've cited the issue of maintenance, but Eskom has also cited the fact that they are experiencing consequential reasons based on the underlying cause, that is the completion of Medupi and Kusile, which is running 10 years late, and which in fact Rasul alerted to. Now, the problem is that Brian Yellen, who is an energy analyst, stated that the first 5-year delay was caused by policy indecisions within Eskom, the second 5 years by execution delays. Would you agree with that? That the government has only itself to blame for policy indecision, and that Eskom is largely responsible for the execution delays?
Well, Medupi and the power stations were supposed to have been completed a long time ago, no dispute there. There have been big problems in terms of completing them. A number of these factors, people who have been following the industry should know them. Some of them include some of these international companies that are building these power stations. They are failing us, and the minister on Thursday, he did mention them by name. They are doing a shoddy job, and therefore some of the work had to be redone. We also have had over 24 months when we put together all the strikes that have happened at Medupi Power Station. All of these things obviously are resulting in the delays that we are seeing, but importantly, people who should know how to do business in terms of building power stations, some of them have failed us, and the minister has mentioned them by name on Thursday, and all of that information is on the record. So, yes, Eskom, in terms of project management, clearly our executives and the board, especially the executives, because it's their daily operations, they needed to have followed up and made sure that people are doing the right thing.
So do you agree with me then that they, you know, because Brian Yellen, you must have seen the report, did mention clear policy decision-making, lack of decision-making, absence of a funding plan, geological problems during civil work, boiler welding issues, inadequate levels of skill, inadequate availability of skill, labor problems resulted in significant strikes. You're obviously familiar with that. Initially, Eskom did not, in fact, implement a site-wide labor agreement. And then obviously that subsequently changed. And so the main thing is that we are missing out the kind of fundamental core reason why Medupi is delayed. At the end of the day, we need extra energy capacity, and the energy capacity doesn't exist.
Well, those points are...
Okay, I'm just being told by my producer, I have to stop you. I'm going to get back to you to answer that specific issue, Kulu. We have to go for a quick ad break. I'll be back shortly. Well, welcome back to I Beg to Differ, and we are in debate with Rasul Snyman and the spokesperson for Eskom. Kulu, sorry to stop you, just before we went for the ad break, I gave you the list of reasons why energy analyst Brian Ellen spoke about the inherent failure at Medupi and Kolusi. Do you agree with all of that? And what can be done?
Well, those things that I have mentioned are coming from Eskom, by the way. We are the ones who have gone to Parliament and other platforms to say that the company has failed in terms of project management. We shouldn't be having these cost overruns that are currently happening at our power station. We shouldn't be having the problems that we're having with coal shortages. We shouldn't be having breakdowns that are resulting in load shedding at the moment. All of these things were mentioned previously, and the latest edition of us mentioning them was this past Thursday when the minister was having a media briefing and we were saying some of the things that are bedeviling this company. So in other words, we know what the problems are, and both Eskom board management and the shareholder know what the problems are. We are dealing with them based on what plans they have been put in place at the moment.
Kulu, you did mention something which I need to ask you on. You mentioned the issue of the shortage of coals. Now, this is an ongoing debate because you've mentioned this, Eskom has mentioned that there's been apparently a shortage of coals. I've got a report from Anna Marth, who is the CEO of the Middelburg Chamber of Commerce and Industry. You may have come across this. She claims that there is no shortage of coal. In fact, she says that the coal is piling up at the mines and it's in fact uncollected by the utility. She speaks about Middelburg. That's positioned between three large Eskom power stations. There are 170 coal mines within 200-kilometer radius of the town. And when she spoke to the Witness, that's the daily paper in KwaZulu-Natal on Tuesday, she said that Eskom had in fact ceased taking delivery of the coal for reasons unknown to her for the past month, and claimed that there's a coal shortage, when in actual fact Eskom did not basically go and take the coal that's available. The Witness and many media papers contacted Eskom for a response to the questions about the coal supplies. No response was basically given. I just want to basically deal with, is this a shortage of coal? Because you've got the CEO of the Middelburg Chamber of Commerce and Industry stating that there are about 170 coal mines which are largely untouched and untapped. How can there be a shortage of coal when Eskom is not accessing the coal that is in place?
Things that and the other point I would like to make again is, and you should know this, not everything that you read is true.
I agree.
Is to check with the people who allegedly said those things. So what Eskom did, which is what everyone should do when they want to follow up on things, Eskom phoned the Chamber of Commerce in Middelburg and spoke to the lady who allegedly made the pronouncements. And she said she was misquoted. And lo and behold, outside of Eskom, this lady was also speaking to ENCA yesterday. And she said she was misquoted. So in other words, what I'm saying is maybe you should speak to her. But what she did say to Eskom...
How was she misquoted? Can you tell us, how was she misquoted? Well, I didn't see the report in ENCA yesterday. How was she misquoted? What did she say? Because this is what she says. She says that, this is a question. She says, how can Eskom tell us there is no coal? This was a quote that she was made, but that the Witness, in fact, quoted her saying. Well, what was the actual quote? What did she actually say then? What was she saying?
So all I'm saying is the story in the Witness is factually incorrect because the lady says she never said that. So Witness story has to be retracted, and hopefully Monday or whenever they're going to write a correction so that you can use it maybe next time when we have this conversation.
Okay, Rasul, is it something? Yes, go ahead.
If we go to the point of saying that all information should be checked,
yes,
don't believe what you read. then we can't believe Kulu as well as an Eskom representative. You know, because he is getting second-hand information from someone else who may have perpetrated a crime and is telling him what they think he should know. So therefore, what I say is when we look at the credibility factor, everybody is incredible until proven credible.
Okay.
Now, we can't go to Eskom, for example, and me, even though I'm a shareholder in Eskom, by default, I can't go to Eskom and say, provide me with XYZ information. So what Eskom says now could be a PR exercise as opposed to the truth.
Well, let's go to the bottom. Is there a shortage of coal, Kulu?
Overall,
I mean, in South Africa, a country which is viewed as coal-rich, do we have a shortage of coal?
You see, and I want to go to what this lady is saying, because she's working in the industry. She's saying there's no shortage of coal. And no one has said there's a shortage of coal in South Africa. What we are saying as Eskom is that there's a shortage of coal at Eskom power stations, meaning that the coal is there, is under the ground. So someone has to go and dig this coal. That's all this lady was saying. She's saying in Mpumalanga, I think she's mentioned something like 170 companies that are having mining operations there. So it cannot be true that there's a shortage of coal because these guys are extracting coal and the coal is there. So all Eskom is saying, at its own facilities, where we have to keep the coal is running short.
It doesn't make business sense. Let's look at this from a business perspective. If we were getting coal from China, I would accept that. We are getting coal from South Africa to use in South Africa. It doesn't make sense. At the same time, from a business perspective, you are saying that Eskom invests in the mine so that it can get its coal. Now, this is not a reality. It gives Eskom no excuse to say that it has no coal. Now, either Eskom is telling the truth and the mine and the coal producers are lying, or it's the reverse. The coal producers are lying and Eskom's telling the truth, or vice versa.
You see why, Kulu, and I want you to speak this because not just Anna Marth, but the CEO of Melanie Venice in Johannesburg this week to strategize how they will oppose Eskom's latest tariff proposals, because Eskom has spoken about a tariff proposals. I mean, the average family in South Africa is paying 3,000 rands a month for electricity. Absolutely insane. But what she said is that when one considers the extent of the tariff increases over the past 10 years, the latest plan for the 15% increase over the next 3 years is outrageous. And what she stated that the current round of load shedding, I'll just give you the quotation, the current round of load shedding just prior to Eskom's latest tariff increase application also appeared suspicious given the utility was not taking delivery of its contracted coal volumes. So in other words, the coal is there, but Eskom's not just taking delivery of it.
Well, first of all, let's go back to this thing about whether South Africa has coal or not. Hopefully we are on the same page. South Africa has coal. We are having coal under the ground. We are having companies that are exporting that coal, as you say, to China and other places in the world, and therefore the coal is there. What I'm saying is, at the Eskom power stations, we don't have enough coal, which is why we are saying we need to have more coal there. And
is that the reason for load shedding? Is that the reason for load shedding?
Can you allow me to say this?
Yes, you can. Go ahead. Go ahead.
What I'm trying to say is, and I'm not spinning anything, I'm telling you the truth as I know it. We as Eskom do not have coal at our power stations. We have made it very clear, and we have made it to Parliament as well. We have 15 coal-fired power stations. Out of 15, about 10 of them do not have enough coal. But the coal is there in South Africa. All we need is somebody to sell us this coal. So the problem, among other things, is that Eskom, as I had said initially, Eskom did not invest in the cost-plus mines. For you to get the coal from these cost-plus mines, the company that you have contracted has to pay a certain amount of money, and Eskom also has to put up another capital so that the coal can be extracted. If Eskom is not investing, clearly then these guys will not be able to do so themselves, which is why they are saying the coal is there We just need to capitalize this mine so that we can get the coal.
So
It is not Eskom spinning anything. We are saying the reality is that Eskom did not invest in these mines, and therefore we need to invest in them so that we can get the coal.
Okay, so basically, and I agree, we have to invest in these mines where the coal is indeed available, but has Eskom then invested in mines where coal is not available? Has Eskom invested in the Gupta-owned coaling mines, in mines and in institutions where there's a total lack of service delivery? Has that been the problem?
Well, it is not a secret. Eskom has invested in Tegeta, where they are operating the optimum mine, and Eskom had invested 650 million rand, which we have now gotten back, by the way. But that was the amount of money that was spent there, and we got the coal that we needed at the time for the winter of 2015. And it was July of 2016, we got our money back.
Eskom,
Yeah.
Kulu, just quickly, because the public need to know the answer. The reason for the latest load shedding, you mentioned maintenance, and you've mentioned this at length in many of your media discussions and reports, is the fact that Eskom is unable at this point in time to have the resources to amass the coal which exists in this country. Is that one of the causes also for load shedding?
Well, the reason why there's load shedding at the moment is because our power stations are not operating optimally. There are technical faults that are happening there which have not been addressed, and therefore they are causing us problems. As far as coal is concerned, coal, yes, there is a shortage of coal at power stations, but the reason why there's load shedding is not directly linked to coal. So in other words, what I'm saying is, it's like when you have your car, you have petrol or diesel inside the thing, but you did not do the maintenance on your car. So this has nothing to do with the fuel, which is the coal in our instance, but it's about you not doing maintenance. So Eskom did not do maintenance or adequate maintenance on our power system, and these things, just like anything in life, if you don't take care of them adequately, there'll come instances where they fail you, and that is what is happening now. So management has set aside, as you mentioned in your intro, 11.5 billion rand to address these problems that are happening in power stations. It's going to take a bit of time. It's going to take 12 months in total, but we will do everything possible to make sure that where possible we are able to avoid load shedding. But unfortunately, there will be load shedding like we do have today, which is stage 1.
Okay, so Rasul, again, this is a situation. Eskom, we're not saying Kulu, but Eskom, the management has messed up. They lose the money, they steal money, and people go and pay.
For me, the question is, why should we, the public, carry the cost? That's the question. Because for one, the poor are getting poorer. And if you look at business is going down as well. The economy is being affected. Now, Eskom should be at a point where we can begin to say, in 2 years' time we've recovered and the pricing will come down. But no matter what the remedial actions are, it seems the prices are there to stay. Now, I want to look at pricing. I want to look at pricing to know, are we getting value for money as the consumer? Or is Eskom continuing to protect itself, protect its crime, continue with exploiting the ordinary man on the street, and it gets away scot-free? I'd also like to know, what is government's role in terms of accepting liability for what went wrong?
And they haven't mentioned anything.
Well, no one is mentioning. That's why I'm saying that we're talking about certain aspects of the elephant without talking about the elephant itself. What I'd like to see is the elephant itself. We'd like to see not only spokespeople coming and talking, but to find people who are signing the checks, so that they can answer and not send someone like Kulu, who I'm sure is in an uncomfortable position.
It's not Kulu's fault. Let's give the man the credit. He seems to be a man of integrity. We want the Brian Molefes, we want the Anoj Singhs, we want the Pakam Misani Hadebes. We want them here to answer, but they're not coming.
And the ministers
The ministers need to come, but they don't come. That's a problem. So, okay, Kulu, just as a last segment, last point I need you to make. You cannot expect society to pick up the cost of corruption. You cannot expect businesses to pick up the cost of corruption. I know you want to criminalize the process. People are suffering. Average household payments of electricity, 3,000 to 4,000 rands per month. I want to ask you, Kulu, as a last point, what will Eskom do to recoup the estimated 500 billion rand that it has lost to corruption. Sending Anoj Singh to life imprisonment, which I would like to send him, or Brian Molefe to jail for the rest of his life, is not going to get back the 500 billion rands. Asking government for 1 billion rand is not going to recoup the 500 billion rands. What is the way forward?
The monies that have been paid unlawfully to some individuals or companies, Eskom is in the process of for example, 1 billion was lawfully paid to them. We are now in the courts with a trillion for us to recover R500 million that was illegally paid to them. Mr. Molefe himself, you'll remember, there was, I think, something like 30 million rand that was going to be paid to him in terms of the pension payout. About 10 million rand of that 30 was already paid to him, and the court has made a ruling that that money should be paid back. So clearly, and I agree with you, if there's anyone, you have already made your pronouncement that some of them are criminals. I don't know if they are, because the courts have not made any pronouncement. But the point I would like to make is, if there's any criminality by Molefe, by Mr. Anoj Singh, by Machela Koko, by whoever else within Eskom, these people have to pay the money,
Sure.
and they also have to serve time.
I thank you for that, Kulu. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank Rasool Snyman for your time. Unfortunately, we've run out of time drastically so, and this is an ongoing debate. That's all for now, folks. Join us next week for more hard-hitting debate on I Beg to Differ. Till next time, Assalamu alaikum, good evening, and enjoy the rest of the day.